Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Retro Gamers Podcast, episode number 180. Larry here.
And Anthony here.
And how are you, my friend? How you feeling?
I feel like mashed potatoes.
Well, oh, like with a side of gravy or like the stuffed mashed potato?
No, I feel like... No, I guess I feel like the process of making mashed potatoes. Okay. Like somebody's got the potato masher and is ramming it into my head.
Oh, ouch! Actually, is this how you feel? Is this you, little guy?
Yeah, but turn the smile upside down.
Oh,
yeah, that's better.
This is actually, I got this from Big Potato Games, where I got that Blockbuster board game. They just sent me like this baked potato.
I don't know. My favorite potato will always be Super Potato.
Oh, of course, absolutely. I think I still have that pin somewhere.
Still have that pin somewhere.
Right
Super
away.
Potato.
Oh yeah. Oh well. One day.
I miss Super Potato.
Absolutely. We'll be back. I'll be there. I plan on being there at some point. So.
And I have a feeling it's inevitable. I'll be back there at some point.
Good. So, all right. So we're here. We're going to talk about some stuff this week. I thought last week was actually really good with controllers. It was funny.
I had fun with that.
Yeah, after we recorded, I was really kind of just looking through my controllers, and I was like, all right, this kind of works. And I think we got some good feedback on it as well. So definitely thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you for watching. Mm-hmm. And,
yes.
Of course, remember Instagram, Facebook at Retro Gamers Podcast, along with YouTube, Twitter at Retro Gamers Pod. And definitely follow along, subscribe, and check us out. So, but we got some news this week that actually some new video kind of dropped. Actually dropped last week, but we got into the controller part. But we've been waiting for this one for a little while. It's a brand new sequel to a really long-running series on Genesis that a lot of people, a lot of my friends as well, really looking forward to.
Yeah, it's one of those series where it kind of just it just disappeared when the Genesis ended, mm-hmm. and it never made its way to any other systems, and then just kind of out of the blue, it just it was like, hey, we're making a sequel to Streets of Rage.
Yes.
It's like, wow, okay, great, because. I mean, probably one of the best side-scrolling games I've ever played was, Streets of Rage 2.
Mm-hmm. It was a home run for Genesis, home run on the Master System in the arcades. So, and it was kind of Streets of Rage 4 coming along on the heels of Toe Jam and Earl had a sequel come out a couple years ago. Double Dragon 4 had come out a few years ago. Granted, not that good in some people's opinion, but still a sequel nevertheless. Mm-hmm. And then this one, Streets of Rage 4 coming out, and originally when it was announced, maybe 6 months ago, a year ago, maybe?
Yeah, something like that.
The visuals look beautiful, but then we got a new reveal that kind of hits home to us. So basically, first of all, the Streets of Rage 4, it's got that kind of like that cel-shaded animation to it. Mm-hmm. That looks phenomenal. It's actually done by Dotemu, publisher Dotemu, who worked on Wonder Boy, Windjammer and Windjammers 1 and 2, excuse me, and developer Lizard Cube, who worked on Wonder Boy, and of course Guard Crush Games, who worked on Streets of Fury EX. Yeah. So this Streets of Rage 4 with this cel-shaded animation. Looks gorgeous to begin with, but they just announced the retro gameplay aspect.
Oh, you're talking about the pixel art characters that have been added? Yeah, that just a really nice touch and a great way to throw back to what came before.
Yeah, I love it. A lot of, and it's funny, even going back to the 360, maybe PS3. There was a game, Tecmo Bowl. Can't remember the full name of it. Tecmo Bowl Remake or Redemption or something, where on the fly you can switch from the current graphics to the 16-bit graphics, literally in the middle of a play. Yeah. And a lot of games have done that. Ultra Street Fighter 2, in the menu you can switch between new graphics or classic graphics. I have a feeling that we probably will be playing more retro, maybe, just the way it looks.
No.
I mean, I still downgrade the video quality on a lot of these releases, to show scan lines.
Yeah, I like that too. Like, even on like the, all the minis that come out with like the classic look or the original look, I do the same exact thing because that's how I remember playing them. So
I think I may have mentioned it on episodes way back when I finally got the NES Mini. When I first plugged it in, hooked it up, and I went to downgrade the graphics to show like scan lines. Mm-hmm. The feeling, the sensation I got that washed over me, I flashed back to like 1989, 1990. I'm like, oh my God, this is exactly how I remember this. And since then, I'm basically doing it. That the Mega Man games, you can actually slow down to cause, the graphics, when it starts to slow down because there's too many graphics on the screen. I do that on purpose.
Yeah. Well, like how sometimes you would be like your character would be running and then you would just accidentally disappear for a second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, I don't know if they're going to go that far with Streets of Rage 4, but this retro mode looks really cool. The dual mode comes back where it's basically kind of like a one-on-one fighter. So, and you can check it out, streets4rage.com. Go for it.
Go ahead. No, I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say the graphics again, hand-drawn animation behind the studio who put out Wonder Boy, the Dragon's Trap.
Yeah. And what's really cool also about it is like they're tying it into the rest of the series. It's not like a separated sequel. So like you have a couple of characters from the previous ones that are returning, and then you have a couple of new characters. And then the 2 pixel art characters, which are new as well.
Yeah, actually 5 main playable characters, many unlockable characters, retro characters, Anthony, to your point. 2-player online co-op, up to 4 players locally, which is pretty cool. There's a story mode, arcade mode, battle mode. It's coming out on Steam, PS4, Xbox One, and Switch, and it will be dropping April 30th.
Yeah, that was the coolest thing when the date dropped, because I don't think they had announced a date until like maybe a week ago, or at least one that I didn't notice.
Yeah, it definitely came out of nowhere. So it definitely popped up. And I'm actually debating which system to get it on. I'm going to be honest, if there's no talks of any like 4K capability on this game, because if there is, I might go PlayStation 4. If not, I may go with Switch, but I'm really not 100% sure which system I might go with this. So
you're going to go with the PlayStation 4 one.
Why is that?
Because that's what I'm getting it on.
But you can get it on Switch.
Yes, I understand that, but I play my PlayStation 4 more than I play my Switch.
Fair enough.
And also, it's a lot easier to live stream from my PlayStation 4 than my Switch. So,
alrighty.
So PlayStation 4 wins for me. And if you want to do the co-op play, Larry, I suggest you get it on PS4.
Well, then maybe. Boy, peer pressure, folks. There you go.
Do it. Do it.
So Streets of Rage 4, big time sequel. And I think at this point we can talk about sequels. There's tons of sequels, don't get me wrong. But me and Ant, and as we were talking about this, we kind of got 2 different outlooks on how to go about this. I have a list of some games that kind of, the sequel really brought the series into its own. For these respective series. I know, but you got some interesting ones I want to talk about first, with kind of like some good ones and maybe not so good ones.
Yeah, I was trying to figure it out, because if I were to sit down and just talk about, sequels for a franchise that were really great, I'll spend the entire show talking about Legend of Zelda, because I've played most of them.
Okay.
So what I chose to do was I chose to go back to the original game. And then look at what was the first sequel that really upped the game of that franchise. And then on the other side of things, what was the first sequel in the franchise that I would personally consider a dud? Okay. So I basically am calling them studs and duds. I've got the stud sequels and the dud sequels.
Alrighty.
I won't run through all of them, I guess, because you're going to go through your list. But also, I think there'll be stuff here that you'll have on your list, so you can comment on it at the same time. Mm-hmm. So, starting with the Super Mario Brothers series, which to me is the obvious one to start with. And when I say Super Mario, I'm not talking about. I don't include Mario Brothers in that, because to me that's not the same game. Not the same type.
The original Mario Brothers, the one that I think is terrible.
Yes, the original Mario Brothers that released, in arcade, on Atari, and all that stuff. That one. I'm talking about the first Super Mario Brothers, the game that you got with your Nintendo Entertainment System. Mm-hmm. Obviously, iconic game, very memorable for what it was. In terms of the first sequel that I thought was a real stud, and I think you'll agree with me on this, it's got to be Super Mario Brothers 3.
Oh, absolutely.
There's no question about it.
Absolutely.
They just upped the game in every way you can possibly imagine. You had different worlds, basically, or like they didn't call them worlds, but like every level you visited had multiple stages in them. There were more power-ups and different things you can do, orbs you can collect, different places you can visit to get extra items to use throughout a game. There were just so many elements to it that made it an amazing game. And the music was phenomenal. It wasn't just set up because Super Mario Brothers. You have the two iconic, you have the three iconic themes. You have the overworld, the underworld, and then obviously the boss. Mm-hmm. But then Super Mario 3, there's all the different kind of music, depending on the board that you're playing. The warps were cool. It was clever.
Let's not forget Haley Brooks introducing us to a brand new game and immediately knowing where the warp whistle was, during Video Armageddon.
Yes, in the 1989 movie The Wizard.
Jimmy Woods.
I love that part, because even as a kid, when I saw the movie, I said, "Wait, how does she know that?"
Exactly. She's like, "Get the whistle." She'd be like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah. Well, and the other part that I loved about the whistle is, especially in the movie, because again, movie logic, sometimes you just throw it out the window, is that when he uses the whistle, he gets all the extra points he needs to win the tournament, when it's like, but the whistle doesn't do that. The whistle just takes you somewhere.
I think you're right. That's movie logic. So what are we going to do there?
But anyway, Super Mario Brothers 3 just broke the mold for a sequel.
Yes.
So I got to say that's probably the first one that I needed to bring up.
It, like you said, the overworld map, we'll call it the overworld map, absolutely iconic and basically a staple for every side-scrolling Super Mario game moving forward, in essence. The multitude of power-ups, again, like you mentioned, some which becoming iconic with the raccoon, tail. Of course, the Takumi.
Don't forget the frog.
Well, the frog, yes. The Hammer Brothers suit, and I was going to say the Takuni suit, which finally made its return recently in one of the Mario Brothers games.
Takuni or Tanuki?
I always said I always say Takuni. I've always said Tanuki. It's Tanuki. Excuse me. I was 11. I barely knew how to read. So Super Mario Brothers 3. Oh, and of course, Super Mario Brothers 3 introducing the Koopalings. So,
yes, exactly. The Koopa Kids.
Yep, one of which was named Larry, who I thought was the coolest one.
Yeah, I think he was the easiest one to beat, if I'm not mistaken.
He was the first level boss, yes.
Yes, he was.
So what would be your dud then in a Super Mario Brothers?
Well, I think you'll probably disagree with me on this one, but it wasn't that hard for me to go with it. But I got to go with Super Mario Brothers 2, the USA version.
Well, we're talking North America, so yeah, there is only one Super Mario Brothers 2.
Correct.
I will disagree with you.
Yes.
But I can understand what you're talking about because one of the other series we'll get into, I'm pretty sure your stud is going to be my dud anyway.
I'm pretty sure.
Super Mario Bros. 2 to me, I really enjoyed because it introduced multiple characters for gameplay. You could pick one of 4 characters who each had their own strengths and their weaknesses. It was also which is kind of weird for me to say because this is the reason why there's another game I feel like was not a good sequel. It was such a not a drastic change in gameplay, but it was so different from the original Super Mario Brothers. Obviously, back then we had no idea it was based on a different video game, just remapped, if you will. But I thought Super Mario Brothers 2 was very strong in that aspect, that it was so different, the different game, and it also kind of introduced again to us, like Luigi being able to be a better jumper than Mario. Yes, that kind of happened in the Japanese version, but we didn't know that then. Right. Luigi, Princess being able to float, Toad being the strongest Arnold Schwarzenegger. So I really enjoyed. 3 is more definitive, but I think 2 was a big hit, in my opinion. I remember freaking out when I got Super Mario Bros. 2 for Christmas, so...
Yeah, see, I remember when I played Super Mario Bros. 2 growing up, I thought it was just really, like, you know, obviously it was a Mario game, so I played through it and I beat it. I just remember going through it saying, you know, just remembering how weird it was. I'm like, this is very strange. It's like, why am I picking up turnips? And why, you know, what, like, it was so different. And, you know, granted, different can be good. There's nothing wrong with being different and taking a chance with it. You know, but now as an adult and, you know, reading back on the history of this and why we got a reskinned version of Doki Doki Panic, to me it was kind of like, well, gee, that's a little bit insulting. I was like, because it was determined that you know, the actual Super Mario Brothers 2, which is literally just like the first game, was too hard for us Americans to play.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I guess that's their way of getting back, but you know.
Now, granted, I have no basis for it because I've said this on the podcast. I've never played Super Mario Bros. 2. I own it on the Famicom Disk System, but I've never played through it. And I know it was part of the Lost Levels.
Yes.
It was on the Super Nintendo when we got the Super Mario All-Stars. But somehow I never managed to either play it or get through it, one or the other. It's possible that I played it for a little bit, but I never got through it. And it doesn't have anything to do with the difficulty. It was just one of those things where I didn't do it.
Yeah, I remember playing it. I remember, you know, when it came out at first, I'm like, oh, they made a whole new game for Super Mario All-Stars, and realizing it was the Super Mario Brothers 2. I stopped playing it because it was too difficult.
Oh, so they were right.
It's got some challenge to it. I mean, a buddy of ours, often co-host Charlie, has beaten it proudly, and but yeah, all honesty, it is a difficult game. I'm not saying it's so difficult that we can't handle it, but it was tough.
Well, I'm going to add it to my list of games to do for the challenge this year.
Yeah, no, it's a good one. Trust me. Yeah. But you know what? Between the two of them, and maybe this is just because I grew up with it, I prefer the Super Mario Bros. 2 we got versus Lost Levels because, again, it was such a drastic difference, and I will contradict myself later. It was such a drastic difference in gameplay and story. You know, it wasn't just it. You know, the fact that it didn't look the same. That's what I liked as compared to the first one. So
that's fair.
Yep. Alrighty.
Do you want to alternate and you do one, or do you want me to just bring up another one?
Yeah, no, I'll do one. I'm actually going to kind of merge two of them. Again, I don't really have studs and duds, but if Anthony, one of these series does on your list, definitely, absolutely, let us know. I'm merging these two because they're both the same category, and I feel like they both really launched, like hit their stride with their respective series. Both Street Fighter 2 and Mortal Kombat 2. More Street Fighter 2. You know, those cabinets, you know, I used to, when I was a kid, here in New York, I used to go to what was called Breezy Point Surf Club over in the Rockaways, for those familiar with the area. And I remember they only had like 2 or 3 arcade games at any given time. But when Street Fighter 2 came in for the first time, remember me and my friends were like, what is this? This looks like a weird fighter. And never hearing of Street Fighter 1, you know, almost like, it was almost, to me, I always felt like there was no Street Fighter 1 until I learned about it, because just, we never heard about it. I never heard about it. But
I had no idea either.
Yeah, so, but the iconic gameplay, the iconic character of Street Fighter 2, how it just dominated the arcade scene, you know, and I think the fact that there was this hidden original game that I'd never heard of and I could never find because there was no internet, kind of gave it a little bit of an allure to me, for the game. At the same time with Mortal Kombat 2, we had a few new characters. Again, the gameplay was a little bit fresh, slightly better graphics, better hardware. What was it?
It was bloodier.
It was absolutely bloody. There were more fatalities. Each character had multiple fatalities, and it introduced babalities and friendships, which started the course of some of these kind of weird moments in Mortal Kombat history.
Did Mortal Kombat 2 also have animality, or was that later?
I believe that was later.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe that was later. But yeah, it definitely revved up the violence factor, which, again, for a 13, 14-year-old, game on.
Yeah. And to be honest with you, with Mortal Kombat, I was always more of a fan of Mortal Kombat than Street Fighter, and not just because it was bloodier. Don't get me wrong. That was definitely a draw. But what I liked about Mortal Kombat is that there was an actual really solid story and a mythology behind it, whereas Street Fighter, I never really got a sense of. It was just, M. Bison is this evil ruler, and at some point you have to defeat him before he takes over the world type of thing. I mean, it was a bit basic.
You had a couple. I hear what you're talking about. Like, you really, the only way you knew about the stories of the Street Fighter characters is if you beat the game with that particular character. Chun-Li's father was killed by M. Bison, and M. Bison, I think, killed one of Guile's army buddies. Where Mortal Kombat, you're right, that whole, which ended up becoming a series, Mortal Kombat Mythologies, or it was going to be a series of games. Really.
That would be my dad, by the way.
Which one? Oh, Mythologies?
Yeah,
that was a rough game. I remember I bought that. I had high hopes for Mythology. I'm like, all right, a side-scrolling Mortal Kombat game. I can deal with this. No, I couldn't deal with it.
Nope, couldn't deal with it either. I bought it as well, and I was very disappointed. That one went back to Funko-Land very quickly.
I definitely don't have mine anymore, but maybe I do have mine. And then there was that weird Mortal Kombat Special Forces, which was kind of like it, but it was with Jax.
Yeah, they did. I think for Mythologies, you got Sub-Zero, Special Forces with Jackson Sonya, I believe.
They were going to do one with Raiden, I think.
And but by then I think they killed it. But wasn't Shaolin Monks also part of that?
Oh, maybe I forgot about that game.
I think they were 3, and then they killed it after that. Because I think Shaolin Monks was Kung Lao and Liu Kang.
Yeah,
if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and Liu Kang being kind of like the protagonist in the game. Kind of, sort of. Yes. Same with Street Fighter 2, like Ken and Ryu Ryu with Ken to a point. And then we'll move on to another game. Remember, like, when we finally heard about the original Street Fighter, I remember going, Sagat was the end boss? Like, that's so weird. But that led to the story of his scar on his chest. He got that at the end of the first Street Fighter tournament. So
correct.
That's why I think those two were definitive in their series.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you on that. I think those are good ones to bring up. So for me, obviously, we talked about Mario. Got to talk about Zelda. And again, I don't want to go into the details of all the great Zelda games because, to be honest with you, to me, every Zelda I've ever played has been a hit. So I went with, again, the first sequel that really upped its game. And I think the first sequel to talk about is on Super Nintendo, and that's Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. Absolutely. I mean, again, I will always argue back and forth between the original Zelda, Link to the Past, and Ocarina of Time as the best Zelda game. I don't know which one to go.
I'm with you.
But Link to the Past just basically took everything from the original Zelda game. You got story. You got way more story in that one, where you actually have the characters talking to each other. You know what's going on. You get through the first adventure thinking that this is all over, and then it friggin' flips, and you get the second half in the Dark World, and everything about that game was, to me, very epic. And then obviously I can go on and on about Ocarina of Time because they managed to up it even more in a 3D adventure. So for me, Link to the Past, definitely the first sequel to really, knock it out of the park. And then obviously the dud I would have to pick if I had to pick one is Zelda 2: Adventures of Link. And rightfully so. I think rightfully so. If it was definitely a lot weaker, and I give it to Nintendo for being bold and trying to do something different. They gave it the overworld, but then when you went underground, it became that side-scrolling adventure.
Very Dragon's Quest.
Yeah, exactly.
To a point.
And then you had the random enemies that would pop up on the
Very
overworld
much like
screen,
Dragon's
and if they
Quest,
hit you, yeah, exactly. So it was different. It was bold, but it didn't click very well. Not only with the majority of the American audience, but just with me personally. Like, I remember how cumbersome it was to play through that game, and I did beat it eventually. But I didn't beat it until I was an adult, because when I was a kid playing it, I just kind of put it aside. I was like, okay, I said I'm going to move on to something else.
Time to go. And look, back then there was only 2 Zelda games. It was Zelda that we know, and then Zelda 2 Adventure of Link. So you can understand them going in that different direction to try and change it. Like, if they would try that now after all these years, everyone would be like, no, sorry, go back to R&D and fix this. But, I can understand their purpose, though. Yeah, you're right. I despise Zelda 2. I don't like it. I don't enjoy playing it, compared to the other ones. Zelda Link to the Past, not only the story and, a much larger game physically because it was on the Super Nintendo, but the graphics, of course, love those crisp graphics. The gameplay itself, kind of go back to last week with the controller, more buttons, more layout to be able to use more weapons easily. I mean, Ant, you were live streaming Oracle of Ages on the Game Boy, which granted, limited because there was only 2 buttons. It was on Game Boy Color, but you saw the constantly going back and forth between the menu to switch out your weapons, where you kind of take for granted then the Super Nintendo controller at that point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, and playing Oracle of Ages is just similar to playing the original Legend of Zelda, because that was on NES and you had to do the same exact thing. So I'm comfortable doing that. But even still, like when you play Oracle of Ages, it plays like the original Legend of Zelda. It's all overworld, so you're comfortable with everything you're doing, and it doesn't tend to switch. I will say, when I first went underground and got like the first side-scrolling piece of Oracle of Ages, it gave me pause for a second, because I was like, this is weird. I was like, because I'm not used to Zelda doing that.
And that was like in Link's Awakening.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But again, very short.
Yeah.
So it's no big deal. Whereas, Zelda 2 Adventures of Link, the dungeons that you went through were side-scrollers. And just based off of that, it was very confusing. I remember struggling to get through the dungeons in Zelda 2 because they were side-scrollers.
Agreed.
So.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Alrighty. And of course, like you said, everything's a hit, maybe, instead of Zelda. And even Zelda 2 is a hit, but to us, wasn't the best.
Yeah, to me, out of all of them, it would be the weakest for me.
I got one here, and we're going to go back to Genesis here for a moment, because this game, not only
for the first time,
well, Streets of Rage, we kind of talked about in the beginning.
Oh yeah, true.
It's kind of what kicked off this whole thing.
I'm sorry.
No, it's all right.
My brain's not working.
This game not only defined a series, in my opinion, but defined the characters in it. And I'm talking about Sonic the Hedgehog 2.
That's on my list.
Yep, absolutely. The first Sonic, groundbreaking, epic, classic. Really, there's not a bad thing to say about it. Sonic 2, though, in my opinion, when you brought Tails into the game, that's what I really enjoyed, as far as, because the gameplay was kind of sort of the same, straightforward, but just having that second character. But how they did the second character, I really, as a one player game, as a one player player, when you play Sonic 2, you play as Sonic and Tails follows you, but Tails, when controlled by the computer, can still collect rings, can still defeat enemies, if it's smart enough to do so. And even in a two-player game, even though it's a two-player game, you're still just Sonic, but like the second player can control Tails and kind of cheat your way through, because when Tails gets hit, he doesn't have any lives, nor does he lose rings. So, but Tails is so iconic at this point now as well. Where would Sonic be, in my opinion, without Tails now? So,
yes. And just a shout out to the fact that what is it? Tails, like his name was originally supposed to be like Miles per hour.
Well, that's
or
his
something
name.
Like that.
Miles.
Tails, Miles.
Miles per hour, Prower.
Miles per hour. Yeah, miles per hour, which is just really funny.
It was on this podcast years ago that you can hear it click
when it clicked
finally,
yes.
And I'm like, oh, miles per hour.
Yes, I do remember that.
Yep.
I do remember that moment, and that was great. But yeah, I mean, Sonic the Hedgehog 2 basically took everything that the first game had, added to it, just made it. It was the same experience, just there was just so much more. It was, if possible, to think about it, it was faster. There were different elements to it, like having Tails with you the entire time. Definitely changed the gameplay and stuff like that. The levels were super fun. The music was great.
Oh yeah,
like everything about it, it was just really, really solid all the way through. And to be honest with you, all of the ones on the Genesis were great. Like all of like Sonic 3 and then adding Knuckles and all that stuff, like all of that, like everything they did. But Sonic 2 really, like, they didn't sleep on it. They really put a lot of work into making it a superior game.
Now, when you played Sonic 2, did you play, like, you had 3 ways to play Sonic 2. Either regular Sonic and Tails follows you. You can play just as Sonic, or you can play just as Tails. Did you ever prefer one over the other?
I always played Sonic with Tails following me.
Okay. I always went Tails. I guess for me, I like it, to have that option to play as a different character in the game, which is why when Sonic and Knuckles came along with the that had the what they call it, not an add-on, I forgot what they called the technology, lock-on technology. That's what they called it. So it was the only game, and I thought it was pretty ingenious by Sega to do this, where you had the game, but then you can put either Sonic 2 or 3. I don't think it worked with 1. Oh, no, it did work with 1. I thought, yeah, okay, never mind. It worked with all 3 then. And then you lock it on, and then you can play as Knuckles in those games, which even to this day, and I know I can look it up, and I'm sure there's an answer to it, but a part of me does not want to read into it. But it makes me wonder, did they always have this weird technology planned? Because there's parts in those Sonic games you cannot reach with Sonic and Tails as you originally played those games. But then when you play as Knuckles, you can easily reach them. And, like, there's things there. So, it's part of me always wondered and wants that kid inside of me to still want to wonder.
Okay, well, you can wonder. I honestly don't have the answer for you. I would lean towards no. I would think that they did not, because I don't believe when the first Sonic game was created that Tails or Knuckles were even concepted at that point.
Well, I mean, they could. Well, A, thank you for busting my bubble, and second
you're
of all,
welcome.
It could be because remember, Yoshi was always planned for the original Super Mario Brothers. They just couldn't do it.
True.
Or
Super Mario Bros. 3,
right. Maybe.
Again, that's just my assessment.
I know.
I could be wrong.
But
I don't like to be, and I tend not to be. But
I know that. Let me ask you this: what would you say is the dud? Because there were for a gap of time, there were a few duds of Sonic games.
There were a few, but I gotta say, it took me a long time to really get to a dud in the traditional sense, because I can bring up stuff like Sonic Shuffle, which was a Mario Party knockoff that I had on the Dreamcast that wasn't good.
I wouldn't have counted that as a sequel.
No, but and you can talk about, was Sonic Spinball a dud?
I love Sonic Spinball.
Yeah, I kind of had fun with that. But the dud I got to go with is actually probably more recent. It was the one that they made on the Xbox 360.
In 06?
Yeah, the one in 06 where, like, he kind of had a human girlfriend that he had. It was just really, really weird. And it didn't play like the other Sonic games. So I'd have to say that was the one that popped in my head as the first dud. Or really solid dud. Was there one in your brain that you think came sooner?
No, because you had that. You had there was the Sonic game on the Wii. I can't remember what it was. It was almost like not like a medieval theme, but it had kind of like a sword theme to it. I can't remember what it was, because Sonic Adventure, Sonic Adventure 2 were solid. Sonic Adventure 1 was probably the best of the series, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, Sonic Adventure on Dreamcast, I think, is my favorite.
And then, you had the Sonic 06, which really put the series in jeopardy. You had some of the offshoots on Game Boy and stuff. I'm not going to count those. So really, I think Sonic 06 is, to me, probably the biggest dud that there is, only because I can't remember the name of the Wii version. But then the series absolutely bounced back. It bounced back a little bit with a game called Sonic Generations, which it may have just ran out as Xbox Gold as a downloadable game. It may still be available. Check it out. And it's cool because Sonic Generations kind of mixes the old with the new at the time, where you would play a level as current Sonic, tall, skinny, 3D aspect to it. Not like Sonic Adventures 3D, but just, where the turning aspect and stuff like that. And then you could play the exact same level as classic Sonic. Short, stocky, a little chubby. And it's just a straight-up traditional side-scroller. But you have to play both entities to get through the game. So that was a good one. But then Sonic Mania comes out, and we're back to square one. That made the series extraordinary. Yes. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna switch consoles again.
On the fly.
We're gonna go over to the Sony PlayStation. And I think it's pretty safe to say we wouldn't have or I'm sure we would, but one of the most iconic survival horror games, or maybe the one that puts survival horror on the map, is the Resident Evil series.
All right.
And there's no question about it. I mean, Resident Evil 1, absolutely fantastic game. The first, the sequel that I call a stud, there's no question Resident Evil 2 took everything Resident Evil 1 had and just made it infinitely better. Even graphically it was better, story was better. It was a 2-disc game. You had two playable characters. It was. Yeah. You had two playable characters again, similar to the first one. And one of the characters was directly tied to one of the originals. So Chris Redfield's sister Claire is one of the leads in the second one. But just everything about the game, it was bigger, it was scarier, it was more complex. The acting was just as bad. It was, so
it makes it good.
Yeah, exactly. It was like B-level acting,
yep.
But in an A+ game.
Okay.
Like everything about Resident Evil 2 was amazing to me. I can still remember going through the adventure with Leon and with Claire.
Okay. Now, knowing you though, I feel like your major, like your go-to sequel is either going to be 3 or Code Veronica, and I kind of want to say Code Veronica.
Oh, for my favorite?
Yeah.
Yeah, Code Veronica for me, when I played it on the Dreamcast, that was my favorite one.
Okay.
There was something about that one. I just think that I always thought like Resident Evil 2, they hit everything right. But Code Veronica for me, and it could be the graphics were more advanced, the story was more involved and whatnot, but I really think that when they hit Code Veronica, I just loved everything about it.
Cool. Admittedly, I really wasn't into that series when it originally came out, not because I thought it was bad or anything. I just wasn't into it. I wasn't really into horror, even though I was kind of force-fed hanging out with all you guys. But I just really kind of wasn't that into it.
You're welcome.
It wasn't until later where I really but I discovered kind of the remakes of the Resident Evil, like on GameCube and stuff like that, which changed up the control schemes a little bit. But I should give it a shot. It's on the PlayStation Mini, so I'll probably give that a shot. Like to play the original series of it. And with that kind of, you were saying some stuff with the sequels. I kind of want to jump in for a minute just to say, a lot of times with these sequels that make a series really kick it into high gear, do you and I know this is all opinion and just kind of off the top of your head, but do you feel like sometimes that's probably because the makers of the games are fixing what probably went wrong with the first one, or they were just seeing or do you think maybe they had it planned? Like, I'm sure almost like when you make a movie, you kind of maybe have an idea of a sequel in mind, but you don't go for it until you see what happens with the original.
Yeah.
So maybe these games have been planned out for 2 or 3 games and they're able to execute versus, maybe we shouldn't have done that here. Well, let's do it here.
I don't generally think of video games the same way I think of film franchises. I really don't. Especially when you go back to like the 80s and 90s. I really think what the goal is to make one kick-ass game, and hopefully it does well. And if it does well, you can start working on a sequel. In a lot of cases, and again, I don't know in terms of the business of it, people who develop the games, like the development teams that they put together for a game, after the game is pretty much like towards the end, or like when they hit certain stages of development, parts of that development team will get moved over to another game to work on.
Okay.
So at least that's my understanding. So not everybody, the team doesn't stay together all the way to the end because it depends on what they're working on in the game. But then they'll try and bring back, obviously, like if a game does really well, bring back the team members who worked on it. But I think with any of these games, it's like the first one has to do well before you start working on a sequel, or you get to a certain point where you start testing it. That's what a lot of beta versions are, demos are. Like when you put those out there, the feedback of it will really dictate if they think a game has legs, and then you start working on those sequels based off of that. So obviously for Resident Evil, I think they kind of knew right from the get-go that they had a hit on their hands, and then just jumped right into developing, the second one. And that's, like I said, with any franchise. You know what I mean? I think that, to me, I think that's how it works. Nowadays, though, because video games make so much money, like GTA 5 and like Call of Duty and all that stuff, like these games now, like they make $500 million like in the first week, and it's not based on the game anymore. Sure, the game is the initial purchase, but it's what you spend in the game now because of downloads.
That's a whole different ballgame. You're right.
Right, and that's where the moneymaker has become, because now we have games where it's like they're more concerned with extending the current game's experience, so that a game. Perfect example. I played Dead by Daylight. Right, that game's been around for like 4 years, and the reason why it's been around for that game's been around for like 4 years now.
Holy cow.
And the reason why it's been around for 4 years is because they keep releasing downloadable content. Here's extra stuff that you can play in the game. Here's different outfits you can buy. Here's different, here are different killers, different survivors. So it's become more of how much can you add into an existing game, whereas back then the game you had was what you had. They can add to it. I don't know how I went off on that tangent.
No, you're good. You're good.
But again, Resident Evil 2 to me, absolutely amazing. If I had to pick a dud in the series, it goes to Resident Evil 6. And the reason why is because Resident Evil 6 completely left the survival horror aspect of it behind, and it just became like a action shooter kind of thing. It was just very, very off-putting. However, Resident Evil 7 brought it back, and not only did they bring it back, it's a VR experience. You can play Resident Evil 7 straight through in VR in first person, and I played through a little bit of it.
It's scary.
And, whoa. Yeah.
It really is. It's scary.
It's really good. It's really
just a quick program. I got like 3 more games on my list. 2 of them are super quick, and then one of them we can go into. So
I also have 3, but I don't need to mention them all.
I'm going to mention a couple. I'm going to mention 2 back-to-back, 2 complete different games, but I feel that they were fun sequels and kind of brought, again, some different gameplay aspect. First one is Soul Calibur 2.
Oh, yes.
On the Dreamcast, the first one, Soul Calibur on Dreamcast, oh my god, I played so much of that game.
I still have it.
Yeah, I wasn't even a big fighter. Like, other than Street Fighter 2 and Mortal Kombat, I really wasn't into fighters, but Soul Calibur was just gorgeous. Soul Calibur 2, though, built on top of that, introduced some new mainstay characters, but what I thought was really cool was for the home releases of Soul Calibur 2, they really drove the home platform exclusive characters. So this is why I really like Soul Calibur 2. On the PlayStation 2, they added, Hayachi from Tekken, Mishima. On Xbox, they had Spawn, Todd McFarlane's Spawn, which was really cool. Of course, the one that I got was on GameCube because they brought in Link, which is like one of the first times you saw a Nintendo character in a non-Nintendo game.
Yeah, and I don't...
Well, first time in a long time.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think I have Soul Calibur 2 for the GameCube, and I really need to get it just for that aspect. I have it for Dreamcast. That's the one I wound up with, if I remember correctly.
No.
But,
Soul Calibur 2 wasn't on Dreamcast.
I'm sorry.
Probably PlayStation.
PS2.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
PS2.
Okay. Yeah.
That's the one that I have. Because I didn't have the one with Spawn, and that was Xbox.
Okay. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That was Xbox. And Link played awesome. Like he was really good in the game. Like he was a high quality character. And what's funny is they re-released Soul Calibur 2 later on, Soul Calibur 2 HD Online for the 360 and the PS3, and Spawn and Mishima were in the game. Obviously, Link was not, but it was pretty cool that those two characters. And future Soul Calibur games had those platform exclusives. The last time they did it, you were able, I forgot which platform was which. One you got Darth Vader, the other one you got Yoda.
Yeah.
So...
Just
it was
really
kind of
cool.
like, it was almost like Super Smash Brothers Ultimate before Super Smash Brothers Ultimate, like in a very small capacity.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's exactly what it was.
So I thought that was really cool. That's why I enjoyed Soul Calibur 2. And then this other one I want to mention real quick. I mean, it just, to me, ended up becoming the greatest arcade game of all time, and one that I insist on getting the high score whenever I see it in the building, Ms. Pac-Man. So,
I knew you were going to say Ms.
Pac-Man, iconic. I mean, the quarters that were dropped into that game in the early 80s made so much money. They make this sequel, and back then in the 80s, you're like, Ms. Pac-Man, who wants to play that? Everyone wants to play it. No, it's true. The 80s, it was different.
No, I understand that. No. I'm saying wow in terms of people were wowed.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, times were different.
Not wow sexism. Although,
we can go back further. So Ms. Pac-Man, not only did it, because Pac-Man was one stage. It was stagnant. It was static, I should say. But Ms. Pac-Man introduced different stages, introduced different power-ups, and to me was just an overall better gameplay than Pac-Man. That's why Ms. Pac-Man will always be my absolute number one arcade game of all time.
It also had a little bit of a story to it.
It did. The cutscenes. Even when Baby Pac-Man shows up and everyone's like, wait a minute, how's that happen?
The store brought him.
Sure did. So I couldn't, I could not get through an episode about sequels without talking about Ms. Pac-Man. And then you had like Baby Pac-Man, Super Pac-Man, Baby Pac-Man.
Junior Pac-Man or Pac-Man Junior?
That's what I meant. I said Baby Pac-Man. I meant Pac-Man Junior, which was cool because it was a hybrid arcade pinball machine.
Yes.
That is very cool. And Super Pac-Man I kind of enjoy. It has a flair to it, but nothing will beat Ms. Pac-Man in my mind.
No, and I agree with you. I think, Ms. Pac-Man to me is the definitive Pac-Man 2 play, especially the speeded up version. You know what I mean?
I have to. Where I can't play any other way. Yeah.
Yeah, the regular version, it's too slow. It's like I got to play the faster one too. I do prefer that. I will say though, I don't know if you remember if we're pulling out a dud in the Pac-Man universe, the side-scrolling Pac-Man Adventures games.
I do. I remember those.
So bad.
They were rough.
They were just bad.
They were rough.
Yeah, see, the Pac-Man wasn't meant to have legs and walk through a screen.
No.
That's just, no. Never.
Not at all. It was just weird gameplay to begin with. It was on the NES and the Super NES. But it was awkward.
Yeah, it was definitely awkward. So that would be the dud if I had to pick one, for sure.
Yet I love the Pac-Man cartoon where he had legs and arms and a hat. So,
well, no, that's fine. He was a cartoon. It was completely different.
Stupid me. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, hell, I liked the Pac-Man board game better than the Pac-Man Adventures games.
Oh my God, I've seen the Pac-Man board. Yes.
That I loved the Pac-Man board game because he ate the marbles.
He really did.
Moved your piece.
Absolutely. It was better than Hungry Hippos.
I know. I wish I still had that board game.
Forget about
it. eBay.
All right.
So I'm gonna touch on one. Obviously, we haven't gotten to this one yet, and I know this is going to be the one that we're going to debate about the most. Right. Obviously, Castlevania series, by far and away the most memorable series or franchises that we've played. I just completed Rondo of Blood, which was really fun. lot of fun. But if I had to, for me, and I know I'm in the minority on this one. If I had to pick one that I felt upped its game from the original, I go with Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest. I do. I like the fact that
I would turn my camera off, but I don't know if it will ruin the recording.
No, it's fine. I like what I really enjoyed about it is the fact that it gave it a little bit more of like an open world feel, even though it was a side scroller. Mm-hmm. For me, if I were to like really say that, Castlevania 2 to me is almost like where Symphony of the Night kind of got that openness to it.
I can see that.
Just early, very early. Version of it. Mm-hmm. I like the fact that you're going around collecting things through, and it was a continuing story for the first one. That was the other thing too that I liked about it, because you're going back through basically the quote unquote levels, so to speak, of where the castles were or the stages were, mm-hmm. to collect Dracula's body parts so that you can destroy him completely.
Yeah, put them together to destroy him again.
Well, basically because he didn't want anybody else to resurrect him.
Exactly.
Because that was the story, that, the ghouls were trying to resurrect Dracula again. So Simon goes back to do it to just put an end to him completely. Now, the reason why the game to me wasn't well received is because the translation was poor. Because there were elements of the game where you really did not know what to do without help.
The kneeling, forget about it.
Yeah, the kneeling by the cliff to get the tornado type. But
real quick, I just gotta say, with the kneeling part though, and I discovered this recently. Actually, from the first Castlevania had an aspect as well with kneeling. Every once in a while, you would kneel in a spot, and you can get like a 10,000 point power up, for lack of a better term. So, looking back on it, I get the kneeling part out of nowhere, because again, that's what happened in the first Castlevania. I don't agree with it because I think it's a terrible game, but go on. I will.
No, but what I was going to say is I think that the translation was poor, and that's the reason why you couldn't figure out some of the things to do in the game, and as a result, I think the game gets a lot of bad flack for it. Mm-hmm. Additionally, when day would turn into night, it would take forever to transition to it. So much so that, obviously now today, the game, it's so small, there's been an update to the game you can download where they sped that portion up, and they also translated everything correctly so you can get through the game. If that had been the case back then, I really do think Castlevania 2 would be considered a hit as opposed to a stud as opposed to a dud.
All right. So, what's below dud? That's where I feel Castlevania 2 may...
What's below dud is Castlevania 64.
Oh, well, then that's true. Yeah, that's...
The two games on N64 were just ugly. Ugly and impossible to get through. They felt unfinished.
Well, the N64 sequel to the N64 game was really a remake of the N64 game hidden as a sequel.
Yes,
everyone got that.
So just everything about the N64 ones to me, that's the definition of a dud. That was a full miss.
My hit in the series is Castlevania 3. I love Dracula's Curse. Again, for me, it is a constant. What's the word I'm looking for? Constant topic, constant whatever. New characters. Introducing new characters into a series to play as. I played as Tails in Sonic 2. I would, play as Luigi. Actually, I played as Toad mostly in Super Mario Brothers 2. In Castlevania 3, you had Grant, you had Alucard, and you had Cypher. So, maybe for me, it was always that, it's the same type of game, but I can play as a different character.
You had choices.
Yeah, maybe that's why I truly enjoyed those sequels. But to me, also overall, Castlevania 3, I think, just hit on every level with the branching storylines and whatnot. Mm-hmm. So, but that one, funny enough, I didn't even list Castlevania on my paper. I don't know why I missed those. Yeah.
But if I really got to go with obviously the definitive sequel, the one that just soars above the rest, you got to say Symphony of the Night.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, overall, me personally, I'll probably still lean towards Castlevania 3. That's a personal, but that's no disrespect to Symphony of the Night. I think, on the grand stage, Symphony of the Night, I understand, would be top over.
Like, for me, Symphony of the Night is my favorite Castlevania game.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Definitely.
And the last one I kind of want to mention here, and there's still many more. I mean, just real quick, honorable mentions.
Oh, yeah.
Tony Hawk 2, the Mario
I had
Party.
that on my list.
Yeah, the Mario Party series, GTA.
GTA, Super Smash. I mean, GTA 3 redefined.
That's the one specifically,
everything. Yeah, GTA 3. I mean, Devil May Cry, 3.
Halo 2.
2 sucked.
No, here's one.
Halo.
Oh, yeah, okay, I got you. I'm sorry. Okay.
No, but again, Super Smash Brothers Melee.
Yes.
Like, Mario Kart 64.
True. Yep.
I mean, there are so many. There are so many sequels we can talk about.
The one I want to wrap up, though, again, this is a situation where it just took the original and just blasted it off. Mega Man, specifically Mega Man 2, to the point that Mega Man 2 was on the NES Classic. Like, that's the one that they went with.
Yeah.
First of all,
rightfully so.
Of course, absolutely. You go from 6 bosses to 8 bosses. The gameplay a bit overhauled to some people, to a difficulty that is unlike no other on normal mode. But not only that, these bosses that you had were just, when I say smart, meaning just, what they were, those elements, Metal Man, Wood Man, Air Man, Crash Man, they worked. And I just think from top to bottom, they took away the point system, which I think was smart, because sometimes, what game have I been playing? I can't remember what game it's been, but like, I'll play a game and I'll go through it, but like, I find myself, instead of trying to beat the game, trying to get a high score, which to me, I'm not really all about high scores, like, except for like Ms. Pac-Man, but I'm not really worried about the score, but I find myself going back to try and defeat everything to try and get those scores.
Yeah.
And that's what I kind of didn't like about the first Mega Man, in a weird way, because it would force me to, instead of just trying to get through the level, like, destroy all these enemies on the board when I really don't have to. But Mega Man 2 took that away, so it was one less thing to stress about, where you're just going straight forward to get to the end boss, defeat him, and move on to Wily.
Yeah. No, and I agree with you on that. I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, with the Mega Man, who cares about a high score? Surviving the level is enough as it is. I never cared. In the original Mega Man, I never cared about the score. It was just like, how the hell do I get through this?
Yeah, basically.
But yeah, no, I agree with you. Mega Man 2 just took everything Mega Man 1 had and made it better.
Yep.
And the things you didn't talk about, the music. The music was phenomenal. What about the Mega Man 1 didn't have a password. Mega Man 2 was the first one to insert the password thing. I remember Mega Man 1.
You're right.
Yeah. That was the end of it. When you either got through the game or you didn't.
You're right.
So just adding the password, again, monumental for that, because the game was ridiculously hard.
Sure was.
And again, to you, for me, Mega Man 2 is the one that I always remember for the characters, for the bosses, and for the very epic final stage of getting to Wily, fighting the giant dragon.
Yeah.
Love that, the metal dragon, and then obviously then getting to Wily in the end. But I just remember, like, you can get all the way through the Wily stuff and then having to jump just to get to the dragon, and then fighting the dragon on those like 3 blocks.
Terrible.
Oh man,
absolutely terrible. And for a very long time, I got to admit, growing up for a very long time, actually Mega Man 3 was my definitive go-to. Magnet Man, Drill Man, Hard Man, Needle Man, stuff like that. But it wasn't until probably in the last 5 years, even more recently, where I kind of rediscovered how amazing Mega Man 2 is. I mean, really, and there hasn't been, and I'm not counting like Mega Man 64 or The Adventures of Tron Bonne or anything like that. Not those 3D ones. But
Mega Man Soccer?
Mega Man, maybe. I'll throw that into the mix. But I'm talking Mega Man 1 through 11. There really, to me, hasn't been I mean, yeah, one of them is not going to be the best out of all of them. There's always that 5th Doctor who recommends stuff. But every one of them really was enjoyable and was a hit.
Yeah, I think what happened after a while with the Mega Man series, it's just a concept got kind of stale because
it's the same thing.
It was just wash, rinse, repeat.
Exactly.
So,
and it's always been rock, paper, scissors as far as the order and to complete these levels. And when a new Mega Man came out, it was really more like, oh, what kind of levels are they? What kind of end bosses are they going to have now? All right, Train Man, Sheep Man, Dirt Man. All right, we're getting a little weird now. But
Pharaoh Man.
Exactly. Very easy to beat too. But still, they all hit, and they're all still fun to play. Even if it is wash, rinse, repeat. You know what? If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Very true.
So
you're absolutely right. Yeah, absolutely right. But no, that's a good one to end on because I honestly don't. I really can't think of a dud except for, like you said, like when you get Mega Man 64, like that just didn't work.
Yeah, I had that too, and it was based off the one on the PlayStation, and then I got on the 64. I just wasn't happy with it. I didn't get far at all in that game either.
No, I guess in some cases there are some games that do not translate well to 3D.
Agreed.
Yeah, we learned that with that one, and in a way, in the beginning, Castlevania also. Just. Yeah. No.
Well, if you want to talk about epic failure in 3D, check out Bubsy 3D on PlayStation.
I'll pass. Thank you.
All right. So that was good. Good stuff. Again, as always, let us know your favorite sequels, what you think which sequel in a series you think actually, shot the series into the atmosphere and rocket strapped it to greatness. And, so that's basically about it. I guess we'll wrap this one up.
Yeah, I think we talked enough about this.
Absolutely. So again, check us out on social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, Retro Gamers Podcast, Twitter, Retro Gamers Pod. In fact, go check out the Facebook and the Instagram specifically. I got a really cool little clip up there of some more of those those game cases, custom game cases from customgamecases.com. Just super quick, I'll show you my favorite one. Speaking of a sequel, Battletoads Double Dragon.
Very nice.
Just the laser print, the laser cut, just the quality of the thing. In fact, I already ordered 2 more of these.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be ordering from them because you know me, I do not like games without their cases.
No, and I got Aladdin and Cool Spot get, so I already ordered those. So yeah, definitely check them out, customgamecases.com. You can get them for virtually any cartridge series, basically Game Gear, Game Boy, NES, Super NES, N64, stuff like that. Where can they email us?
You guys can email us, at theretrogamers.com.
And we want to use that email, so definitely email us.
Yeah, email us, or feel free, message us on Facebook, or comment on us on YouTube. We do keep an eye out on those things.
Yes, we see all.
We see all, we know all, but we do nothing.
Absolutely, especially lately. And with that, Ant, hope you feel better, and I hope you're doing well.
And I hope you're you enjoy the quarantine as best that you can.
I absolutely am going to.
More games.
I'm going to see what happens. Absolutely. Super quick.
Yes.
Update to the video game challenge.
Game challenge.
Yes. So, even though some people have already been complaining to me, I don't care because I'm still counting it. Super Paper Mario. We said we would go up to and including the Wii, as far as consoles. And I put in Super Paper Mario for the first time in a very long time. Granted, it was still my original save state. My original save on my memory card, which, listen, if we could pick up from there, we're counting it because at that time, I'd already put in 18 hours into the game. And then finally got through it. Unfortunately, it was funny. I put it in. I didn't realize I was like a few chapters away from the ending, but I wasn't expecting to beat it. I figured I'd play a little bit of it and then put it away. And the next thing I know, I'm playing it, which I had nothing set up to show it or record it or anything. So I did kind of bootleg it at the end. But nevertheless, I got it. I beat it. Super Paper Mario on the list.
All right. Well, congratulations for doing that.
Thank you very much.
And that puts you one up on me, but I'll catch up really quickly with Oracle of Ages. So.
Excellent. And I'm telling you right now, I mean, I want to go back and play Seasons, and I have Ages. Super Paper, if you can, find it and play it. Super Paper Mario is fantastic.
All right. Noted. Trust me, there are a number of games I have sitting here that I really need to get through. A lot.
Awesome. And all right. So, Ant, again, have a good week.
You too. We'll see you next time.
Absolutely.
We're going to do it again.
And we will catch you right here next week on the Retro Gamers Podcast.